Hello, Fimboldeners, and welcome to a wonderful episode with Brian. Brian, I forgot to ask you, how do you pronounce your last name?
Berneman.
Berneman. That's what I thought, but I wanted to make sure. Brian, with a background in neuroscience and more than 15 years of experience teaching and practicing yoga, meditation, mindfulness, and different healing modalities, is able to synthesize modern scientific knowledge with ancient wisdom to help his clients get the results they desire. Brian is the co-founder of Conscious Action, a movement of people committed to living more intentionally, and You Being You, offering practical, lifelong well-being pathways for heart-connected conscious living. Oh, I cannot wait for this conversation. Having taught hundreds of workshops around the world, Brian has empowered people from all walks of life to realize their full potential and enable them to live a stress-free and meaningful life. Welcome, Brian. Welcome to Fimbolden. Thank you for being here. How are you today? Who are you today? What's going on in your world today?
First of all, thank you so much for having me here. I always love and really appreciate having this conversation. So thank you for having me. I'm doing great. It's a wonderful time of the year, and there's so much going on, and there's so many changes happening that I kind of like embrace them and go with that flow. So I'm doing great.
That's great. And Brian, for our listeners, Brian and I were just talking about how we have an 18-hour time difference right now.
Yes.
Yeah. So you pretty much, he just started his Monday. I'm winding down my Sunday, and I'm really looking forward to him telling me what the lottery numbers are.
If only it would work like that, right?
Right. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. Oh, Brian, so good to have you. I mentioned this briefly when we first hopped on, that I have, a science mind, but also a spirit mind. And I love connecting with others of the same, I wouldn't say same journey, right? It's just similar pathways. So I'm curious, I guess, what did that jump look like for you? Who were you? I mean, so you started practicing more consciously about 15 years ago, right? So who were you 15, 20 years ago? And I guess what was the spark? And I know that it's not always just one moment, right? It's usually a culmination of moments that springboarded you into waking up.
Yeah. So I think that I have been really fortunate that my journey started with my parents. It was their journey that sparked me to actually go on my own journey. I grew up in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, typical childhood, and I was really stressed out as a teenager, like many are. And even though I thought that I knew a little bit my place in the world, and I thought that I understood myself, I actually didn't. And when my parents started their own journey when I was around 10 years old, like I started to see slight changes, and they would start to recommend, different books to read, and they would invite me and my siblings if we wanted to go and do a yoga class or a meditation class or go for a healing or different things. For whatever reason, at that time, I said yes to all of that. My siblings didn't, but I did. And little by little, I started to, through different experiences, I started to reconnect. And I started to get to the place, as an example, that I went to my first ever Tibetan yoga class. And that was, I remember it now in my body. I remember it was the first time that I actually felt my body and the feelings in my body. Like I thought that until that moment, I knew how that was. I had no idea. I was only living in my head. So I had that experience, and then I had a similar experience with energy healing. I went for a Reiki healing, and it was the first time when I'm like, wow, what's this? And, like starting feeling all of these things. And that led me to a journey now for the last 20 years of, experiencing, experimenting and practicing. And little by little, by doing that journey for myself, Then I just started to share this, and now, like, for the last many years, just this is what I do for a living. And one of the interesting things for me was, I, at one point when I did my postgrad in neuroscience, at that point, I was starting to be much more inclined on the, let's call it, spiritual or holistic perspective. And I couldn't reach most people when I was talking to them. I'm like, it's just all of these weird things or this very alternative stuff. And even with my sibling, I couldn't reach him because he was just, where's the explanation? Where's, he wanted to see the results or something tangible. And when I studied neuroscience, that started to give me some languaging, some understanding, some perspectives that I could share about my experience when I'm, practicing. It's like, okay, so this is what's happening for someone that is not fully open to just diving into the unknown and be like, I'm just going to explore this. So, and now for the last 15 years, it's been like a very interesting journey of diving deep and trusting and seeing what comes on the other side. And that led me to live in different cities around the world, in different countries, very different types of experiences, and just enjoying that ride. And one of the things, and I'm sure that we might talk about this a little bit more, but I see so many people that see me now, and it's like, I haven't been stressed, or I haven't experienced stress in 15 years now. And a lot of people are like, kind of like that, they cannot connect with it. And I'm like, well, that wasn't the case. Like, I did something in there, and you can too.
Yeah, absolutely. What was it? So this is interesting. So for me, I mean, I knew of my gifts when I was a child, shut them down, right? And still knew of my gifts when I went to college, but I was very much science brained in college and in grad school, and I went to PA school. And it wasn't until after I became a PA that I had what I call my awakening, where all those gifts came flooding back and there was no denying them. And I do remember not being able to connect. My husband at the time, I read Dr. Emoto's The Messages in Water. And I was like, this makes so much sense. And I was trying to speak to the science behind spirit using this book. I'm like, this is everything. And I remember talking to my husband, and I talked to the water molecules in his body. I'm like, I just want all of you to know that I love you very much. And he thought I was, clearly that was not the way to connect and share the great that could be, right? But so I remember struggling with the connection. But this is interesting that you went into neuroscience having had these experiences already. And there's no now, and I think you already knew this going into it, but there's really no discernment between the two. They're related, they're interlinked. Yes. What made neuroscience interesting to you? What made you take that turn rather than just starting to travel and live and surrender at that point? What was that like for you?
Yeah, well, I think at first, as you're saying, I think that there's this tendency to try to separate everything. And it's like, it's either scientific or it's spiritual, or or things like that. And it's like, there's spiritual stuff is scientific stuff as well. And scientific stuff as well. And I think that this is one of the main things that when I have a lot of conversations with people, if I understand the scientific method, I understand it's not fixed. The scientific method is about questioning everything. And that is at the core of any other practice that we might label spiritual. Like that is questioning myself, questioning my judgments, questioning my lens and perspectives, questioning the world that is around me and what I can see with my senses. Like for me, what is interesting about this is that neuroscience, especially for the last 10 years now, what it's been doing, it's basically been just proving what a lot of wisdom traditions have been saying for thousands and thousands of years. There's nothing new, really. It's just proving those things. It's like, so now I can go to someone and, I can be like, meditation or mindfulness is good. And if they don't connect with that, it's like, well, this is what's going to happen in your brain. This is what's going to happen to your nervous system. And they're like, okay, I will try that thing.
Yes.
And to go back as well to the question, I was at that time, I had no idea what neuroscience was. This is back in 2008. So this is, like neuroscience is this very new thing. It was actually the second year that it was taught in Argentina at the university. And my mom knew someone that was doing that postgrad. And I was doing my bachelor. I was actually doing 2 bachelors at the same time. I finished one, and I basically had now the afternoons open because I was still doing the other career. And I was like, oh, well, now I have this slot of time open. And my older brother as well, he finished his bachelor, and my mom is like, oh, I heard about this thing. And both of us were like, oh, this seems interesting. So we wanted to check it out. This is my older brother. We ended up doing the postgrad together.
Oh, neat.
And I had no idea what I was getting myself into, really. Like, this is a very new science at that moment. It has advanced so much since 2008. What for me was really interesting with that is that was, this trusting. It's like there's this synchronicity. My mom's just hearing from this woman that there's this new thing called neuroscience. And suddenly my brother finished his bachelor. I finished one of my bachelors. And there's this gap of time, and it's like, oh, this seems really interesting. Let's go and let's explore this. And then it's like, wonderful. Now I have a lot of this knowledge and all of this perspective, and I can use it for my life, my understanding. When my head, if at any point my head is questioning what I'm doing, and it's like, oh, well, I can tell myself I know this, so I can move on. And now I've been able to share it with so many people, especially when I work with businesses or when I work with more logically minded people, or when I'm teaching at university. Like, that perspective supports what I do so much, because again, I need to meet people where they are. If someone is not going to be open to me saying, as an example, the word meditation, because they connect that with Eastern philosophy or with spirituality or whatever, nowadays the word mindfulness is much more approved, let's say, or normalized. So instead of potentially saying the word meditation, I'm just going to say mindfulness. Or instead of saying, let's practice this, is okay, let's rewire the brain. So a few different things make a whole lot of difference in someone to be able to open themselves up to creating change in their own lives. And that for me is what has been so amazing for the last 10 years, especially, is how can I meet people where they are? What about their worldview is in their own way? So then I can actually potentially give them the right key that will open that door, because we all have those different keys to open our doors. And it's like, well, the more that I learn, the more that I know, the more that I can share different perspectives, different traditions, different philosophies, it's easier, because it's like, well, of all of these ones, which one is the one that is going to open the door for that person? And that for me is so great, because then I'm able to support so many people that potentially just with one lens, I will be very narrow in that, and it will be still great. Yet it wouldn't be what I feel like I'm here for.
Right. No, I identify with this so much. I even find so right now I'm working with patients in psychiatry, in the field of psychiatry, and they all live in North Carolina. I'm working from home, but all my patients are down south. And so their doctors, their providers know everything. This is what they've been conditioned to believe. Everybody says, yes, ma'am, of course, yes, ma'am, anything you want, right? Just super respectful and giving their power away at the same time. I think there's the culture down there is starting to shift a little bit to more conscious ways of thinking, but it's still not there, right? So it's still a lot of woo, but I'm still asking them the same questions in different ways. So I've discovered asking, in terms of meditation or mindfulness, I asked them, can you think of a moment where you've simply lost track of time and you felt good doing it? Yeah, when I pick up my guitar or when I paint. I'm like, okay, that's meditation and I want you to do more of it, right? And it's just, that's mindfulness, whatever you want to say. And I said, it doesn't have to be you crossing your legs and saying, oh, I just want you to lose time in a healthy way, right? And it's really opened things up, and a lot of them identify with certain religions, right? God, Jesus, and I asked them, do you consider yourself a religious or spiritual person? What words do you identify with? Is it God? Is it universe? Is it source? Is it Jesus? Is it the Lord? And they tell me right away, and it's almost like they were dying for somebody to ask them, because that was a part of them that nobody saw. And just by doing that, it opens up the pathway to healing.
Yeah. And I think that for me, one of the main things I usually come back to this word, for me so important, is connection. How do you connect? Yes. Forgetting about meditation, mindfulness, or anything. It's like, how do you connect? Do you connect by, as you're saying, playing the guitar, by painting, by walking in the forest, by even if you connect like by watching TV, like different people connect in different ways. What's the way that you're connecting? And that for me is the most important thing, because the biggest problem that we have in the world is disconnection. We're disconnected from ourselves, we're disconnected from others, we're disconnected from the earth, we're disconnected from the universe, and there lies all of the issues that we have from that disconnection. So the more that we can get back to that place, it's like everybody can believe what they believe. As you're saying, when I work with someone and they love Jesus, it's like, love Jesus. That's great. Connect with him. What's the energy? What's the qualities that Jesus displays? How can you embody more of that? How can you be more of that? If you love Jesus and Jesus is all about love and compassion and kindness, how are you living that? So, and if someone is from another religion or another perspective, it's like, how do you connect with that which you connect with? And that for me it's the key. It's not about when I'm doing my work, is I don't want to change anybody. All of that I'm doing is I'm here to support them in their own journey. As you're saying, that giving away of the power, I aim not to do that, because I understand that it's like I'm here for them, but they are the ones that do the work. It's the thing that a lot of times people are, when something changed or shifted in their lives, and they're like, oh, thank you so much. I'm like, no, thank yourself. You did that. And they're like, no, well, but you supported it. Yes, okay, I supported it, but you did that. So I think that it's one of the things in all of this of understanding, we're all powerful. We all have our answers. We might need someone else to support us, just to create the space that enables us to see that for ourselves. Yet we're never we don't need anybody else to do that as we've been conditioned, as you're saying, with a doctor or with someone in a position of power. We don't need that. And it's one of the things that a lot of times my aim with my work is that if someone is coming to see me because they need me, then I'm not doing my job.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like, come see me, and hopefully I never see you again from
Yeah,
that
I say the
perspective.
same
You know,
things.
like
Yes,
it's
yeah.
like then that means that I did something right. And that doesn't mean that there's no continuation or there's no progress or different things that we can work with. It's not that. It's just there's a subtlety there between the need of someone because we have given away our power, or the recognition that someone is supportive for ourselves to do our own work. And that subtlety is something that it takes time to recognize, yet it's so important.
Absolutely. And I say something similar. I say it to my clients, exactly what you say. If they need me, then I'm not doing my job. And I hope I don't see you again. I don't know how many times I say I would love to see you, but I hope I don't. Right? But patients, I leave them saying, if you don't leave our visit feeling empowered and feeling good about your decisions today, then you need to let me know, because I'm not the provider for you. I'm not doing my job. And I feel like so much, even when I worked in New York State, so much of my job was giving them the power and letting them know, look, listen, I'm just the medium of information that you didn't get. You didn't choose to do that path in life. And I have that knowledge and I can tell you which way I'm leaning towards, but it's your body. You know better than I do. Here's all the information I can give you. Which way are you leaning? Right. Yes. And the other thing I found really powerful, and this is kind of leaning towards the surrender aspect of things, is I tell my patients too, and my clients, nothing's permanent. Right? You make a choice, regardless of what that choice is. I mean, if it wasn't the choice that ended up being the best one, it can change, right? It doesn't have to be forever. And I find that gives an immense amount of power back to my patients, my clients, is this does not have to be forever. You sitting in the feeling and the belief that it is going to be forever, whatever it is, it could be as physical as diabetes. It can be emotional as a breakup. It can be as stuck as a limiting belief. It doesn't have to be this way forever. It really is up to you if you want to see it that way, or if you decide this is just temporary, because then it gives them that space, that breath, that pause to be able to see things differently, to have room for a new perspective. And with that room comes change, I have found. Have you had a similar experience too?
Yes. I mean, and for me, this is one of the things of why I really connected and resonated with the Tibetan Buddhist teachings, because they supported me a lot in my own understanding, and impermanence, it's at the core of all of that. To understand as well, like, what are the things that I can control? There's the illusion that things are permanent, and there's an illusion that I can control a lot of things.
Yes.
And when I can relax that, like for me, a lot of the times with myself and my practices, it has been about relaxation. And relaxation not only of the physical body, relaxation of those narrow perspective, or the holding of a perspective or an idea without the understanding, like there's nothing fixed, nothing lasts forever. I might die whilst we're having this conversation, or I might live for another 100 years. I have no idea. For me, the interesting thing about that is not only that it's like empowering, is understanding as well. A lot of times with certain teachings, especially with teachings of impermanence and death and control, they are not pointing to that negativity. They are pointing to the idea of surrender, of trusting. They are pointing to the idea of being grateful, and to be able to actually see and feel and understand the preciousness of human life and these moments, so that we can actually be present and not so focused on what might come, because that doesn't exist. So yes, we are experiencing this linear way, or this linear time. So there was this past, and there's this present, and there's this future. That doesn't exist. We are never in the future. We're always in the present moment. And there's this illusion that that's the case. So when I am able to start to relax the view that things are permanent, there's such a thing as a future, that there's such a thing as problems, like all of these different things, when I can relax that and I can surrender, then I'm able to create the life that I want, because the only thing that exists really is this moment. So if at this moment I decide like I want to have energy, it's like, okay, energy, my one of my teachers used to say, each moment you get a new chance to choose. So now, each moment you choose. And it's not about judging what you have been doing, because what you have been doing is what you have been doing. Now you have a chance to change. So, a lot of times I tell people when I'm leading meditation practices, it's like, if you realize during the meditation practice that you were thinking, that's perfectly okay. The moment that you catch yourself, you come back to whatever it is that you were doing or that I was guiding you, instead of being stuck in the, oh no, I shouldn't have been thinking, or whatever it is, like, that's gone. Let's not judge that. Let's move on to what's actually alive and present now. And that for me is so important to understand. The more of those understandings, the easier it is then to navigate through life, because I'm not attached as I used to so many things. I am not stressed out and get overwhelmed with what's happening. The situations that are in my life, yes, they are challenging a lot of times, but they are just situations. I only make them problem if I make them a problem. Right. Situations are just situations. Circumstances are just circumstances. My understanding and my connection with that is based on how I choose. And because I don't believe a lot of times, or we don't believe in general, that we can choose, then that's when we are victims of our circumstances. Yet that's not the case. I can choose. Easier said than done, of course.
Yeah, so, it's a practice for sure.
Like it can take time for some people. For some people, it might be automatic. It's a shift in understanding, a shift in awareness, how we are operating. So we've been conditioned so much in so many different ways, and each of us in slightly different ways. So we need to unlearn so much, and we need to undo so much in order to open ourselves up. And that, that trust and that surrender doesn't come easy. Like, it takes a lot of courage to be able to step into the unknown, to step into a new way of doing things, to step into, like what I did. It's like leaving my home, going to another country, going to all of these different experiences. It takes a lot of courage for someone to be like, I'm going to start taking ownership, and I'm going to start, like taking responsibility for my life, and I'm going to do things differently, because that's not what the people around them are doing, and that's not what they have been doing. So in order for someone to be like doing that, it's like, okay, like that's, like there's a lot of strength there. There's a lot of courage. And that for me is key in this, because yes, we can do it. But if everybody would be doing it, then the world would be different. Yet, for some reason, we're not. We are comfortable where we are, even though that might be a really bad place. Right. But we're so afraid of the unknown that we are missing out on the potential, because we've been trained to see that we might actually get to the worst case scenario instead of, why not the best case scenario? Yes. If I'm in a situation that I don't like, then it's like, well, what if I leave this? Well, I have no idea what's going to happen, yet it might be amazing. Why am I going always to the, oh no, this is going to be like worst, so I'd much rather stay here. And that's okay as well to stay in the comfort zone. It's comfortable. So
yeah, absolutely. I remember I give a lot of my credit to my counselor, my therapist. And she handed me The Power of Now, which took me, 18 months to read, because it was so against anything I learned growing up. It was a whole new, it was like learning a different language, and at the same time opening the door to Narnia. And I remember only being able to read maybe a half a page at a time. And I had to sit back and like process it for days before I could move on and fully grasp it. And I remember getting towards the end of it, and I was probably not coincidentally, definitely synchronistically, on the beach of Antigua and reading the end of it. And I just connected with the ocean in that moment. And I was like, this is what they mean by heaven on earth. I get to decide to do this. But I also, we slip back, and we get into being human, and it can be tempting to fall back into that comfortable discomfort, if you will. But I've noticed, and I'm so grateful that I went through that journey before becoming a parent, because talk about surrender. And I'm noticing it. Just my husband's doing a great job in his growth and consciousness, but I just notice it, how we react to certain situations. He has a bad night sleeping with my son, and he's like, we've got to change something. And I'm like, he's not going to be 30 and sleeping like that, right? It's not going to be forever. It just is what it is. It was a bad night. And it's definitely made me a more approachable mother, and it's allowed me to connect to my son even more so, because he reminds me to be mindful, because that's all a 2-year-old is. They're in that moment, right? They get a fleeting idea, right? And they go for it, but they're in the moment constantly. And there's times where he just stares at the trees, and I'm like, you know what? I want to stare at them too. So
I tell a lot of times, like, to people, if you want to know if you're present, go and be with a kid. They will call you out like this. Like they only know the present moment. There's nothing more than the present moment. Like for kids, especially like really young kids, they don't know anything else other than what's happening now. Like their experience can change like that. That's our learning. That's what children come here for us to learn as well, like, and to show us, that is what it's like to be present. That is what it's like to enjoy life. That is what it's like to have the range of experiences that we're here to experience. And, it's, a lot of my clients that are parents, they always ask me, like, because now it's conscious parenting, it's a big thing. And I'm like, well, conscious parenting is actually you being conscious, and then you're a parent. It's not like, give me the tools and it's like, well, yes, there's strategies, or there's ways of communicating, or there's ways of doing things. Yet the most important thing is you need to be present, because your child, as you're saying, they are going to push your buttons, and they are going to trigger you, like, on everything. That's like, that's what happens. So it's like, when we're able to recognize and to stop, like, one of the key things for me, for my own life, and one of the big things that I share with people, is making the change from reaction to responding. That is key. Reaction is completely unconscious behavior. Responding is completely conscious behavior. Now, the action might be the same, but it's coming from a very different place. One is like completely like someone push your button, it's like blah. And then the other one is like, this is what's happening. How do I need to respond to the situation? And again, perhaps it is the same action. Perhaps it is putting a boundary, or perhaps it's, doing something similarly to the reaction. It's coming from a very different point. And this comes from an understanding of our patterns of behavior, understanding our blockages or our traumas, and working with that, so that we can bring more presence into our life, so that we can then show up in whatever it is that is needed in that moment. Because unless we do that, we're just going completely in automatic pilot through life, and we are not actually living life. Right. And life is beautiful. And that doesn't mean there's no challenges, or there's no, like, negative things. It's like, life is beautiful. There's so much there. And 99% of the time, we are missing it because we are not living it. We are somewhere else. And it's like, even the things that seem familiar, like, even if we are living in the same place for a long period of time, how can I see even the table with different eyes. You know, it's the same table for years. How can I see it with different eyes? How can I experience the people that are in my life as a new person every single time, instead of just thinking, oh, they have done this, so now I'm going to, you know, like, it's like, what are the strategies and the manipulations? No, it's like, how can I allow for everything to be fresh and new? That gives the others as well that permission to be fresh and new, because, you know, just with children, our families, for anybody that is going home for Thanksgiving or Christmas or anything, great places to actually practice or to see how your practice is going. You know, like, it's like, I'm great, like, I'm able to meditate, I'm able to be so centered, and then you go home for the holidays, it's like chaos, because they are showing all of those dynamics and they are pushing all of your buttons. Your family knows how to push all of your buttons. So if you want to know how you're doing with your own practice, go home, go to, you know, like something like that, and see, can I be with that? Can I respond? Can I not react? That, you know, for me, it's wonderful as a way of seeing how far along am I in my understanding. How can I stay present even when I know someone is going to push and push and push those buttons and trying to trigger me?
Absolutely, I agree 100%. I like to think of my son, and I say this all the time, our children are closest to our origin, right? They were just there, so they know better, and we've just been conditioned and I don't know, just laid down and beaten, for lack of a better word, into what society wants of us. And so I've been of the full belief that he's here to teach me more than I'm here to teach him. I have the experience of earth and safety and cars in the road and things of that nature, but I do catch myself there. I'm not perfect at it, but I have that inner dialogue when I'm being pushed, when I'm triggered. Okay, is this a safety thing? Is this just something that's driving me crazy? Why is it driving me crazy? Is it something that I want him to know drives me crazy? Or is this just me reacting, right? And how do I give him a reason every time I set a boundary. No, Ezzy, we cannot throw balls in the road because a car may stop, or somebody in a car could get hurt because they stopped for a ball in the road. You can throw it this way, that way, or that way, right? And give them options.
Yeah. And asking them questions with that. It's like, why do you think that, you know, like this might happen? That is empowering, like, our children, so that they already have the answers. Even in those more earthly safety things, they already have the answers. So getting into that place of that dialogue is so important.
Yeah. And again, I'm not great at it. I get triggered and I explode, especially if I'm kept up all night, right? But I'm also able to recognize and turn around a minute later and say, you know, mommy had a moment. You were right. I was wrong. I'm sorry that you saw that. I love you no matter what, right? So
parenting. And, you know, there's this thing. This is not only about parenting. This is about as well our society and the idea of everything needs to be about individualization. Like, we are all individual. We stop living in communities. We stop living in different ways that supported the growth of children in a way that it wasn't detrimental to the parents as well. Because of, like, who, if they're going to be kept up all night, is going to operate well the next day? No one. Like, you know, like, if we are sleep deprived, we are not going to be operating optimally. We're going to, like, to have a shorter fuse. So, you know, this is one of the issues that we have in society, that is, when we are living insulated and we have created this separation in this, like, it's only about us, you know, like family unit. What does that look like? Parents and children, that's it. Like, there's no grandparents or multiple generations living in one house. Therefore, there's no as much support. There's no intergenerational knowledge and wisdom being passed down. There's no all of these different things that throughout history enabled us to actually grow and develop and have a different type of connection and understanding. And for those that are parents, you don't have to do every single thing.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's like we have so many responsibilities of, like working and making money and all of these things, plus being the parent, like,
managing a house.
there's everything. So it's like, as well, a lot of times, like with that, it's like being able to seek support to challenge the way that we're living as well. I think that it's important, and especially like in the US. I lived in the US. There's a little bit extra of that. There's everybody more as an individual, and it's like, how can we go back to living more in communities as a collective, supporting each other, and in a way that it's not like, there's a giving and receiving, and there's not so much the what's in it for me kind of thing.
Right.
And that again, challenging, and asking questions and being able to open from what's normal, because what's normalized, it's not actually natural.
Right. Yeah. 100%. I've had this conversation twice with my husband, and this just this week alone. We have conversations of having a bigger family. Can we do it? Because we're exhausted right now. And I tell him, I said, we have to give ourselves some grace because we don't have the village we were promised. And even more so, not to play the victim card, but we had our son in COVID. We found out we were pregnant the day they shut the schools down in New York. So we just had each other. And we were grateful for the support of our midwife and our doula, of course, but it wasn't safe for the grandparents to come over and help. Right. And when I finally got back to work, my parents live 5 hours away. His parents live an hour away, but they have their own responsibilities with their aging parents and things of that nature. And if we wanted me to go to work to help support the house, we had to hire somebody to come in. And that'd be great if we could go on a date night, but then we have to then the stress happens, the financial stress sets in. It's like, well, I've got to pay the sitter to come in and watch. And can we afford the sitter on top of the movie ticket? Right. So I'm with you. And I'm grateful that you see this as well. It's challenging and not just for parents, but I feel like, mothers too, especially in the US, are just expected to do it all. And how dare you complain your child is healthy, right? Is what we get when we're like, we're tired. We need a break. Well, your child is healthy and at least they're a good kid, right? And it's like, well, can I complain for a second?
I think this is one of the interesting things a lot of times as well. And I see this a lot of times with my clients. Most of my clients are people that I would say like have privilege in life. If like only a few clients are not in a position of what I would call privilege. I know that I'm in a position of privilege in life. And one of the key things with that is as well as understanding, everybody has their own issues.
Yes.
So, this is one of the things when I do group things, a lot of times, people start to compare and it's like, well, that's not that bad. And it's like, well, but that's, we need to honor that's that person's challenge.
Yes.
Now, we also need to bring perspective to our challenges. And that balances us out, but it's not about comparing or belittling someone's experiences. If someone is struggling because their iPad is not working,
right,
that is something that for them at that moment, that's an issue. Of course, that is not the same as someone that doesn't have water today and is surviving. And like, there's no comparison there. That can bring that person perspective in terms of like, actually the iPad thing is not as much of a big deal as I'm making it, but that is for that own person's experience to be able to expand their awareness, to be able to realize that that is not such a big thing. Yet, as that person is experiencing that before they open their awareness, that's a big deal. Yeah. So, like the allowing is so important. Allowing other people's issues or challenges or problems to to be there, like just to be like, okay, like, yes, that's happening, not comparing it, not, you know, in conversations, not hijacking, not being able to make it about ourselves. It's like, I see that that's happening, you know, like just acknowledging, and then, you know, like just supporting that person or supporting that conversation or just being there for them. That a lot of times is one of the biggest things with our modern society, that it's like, well, your issue is not as big as mine. And it's like, well, like, and
yeah,
how does that help me?
right,
That my issue is not as big as yours. Like,
right.
I'm still struggling. And that for me, a lot of times, you know, like, we all have our blockages, we all have our traumas, we all have all of those things. The more that we can work with that, then the easier our lives become. Yet we need to actually work with that. And majority of the people in the world don't even know that they have had that happening to them, or that they have blockages, or they have trauma that they haven't fully processed. Therefore, they are living with that all of the time. So everything that is happening, it's not them living their lives, it's those traumas living that life. And when we are able to, like, one of my teachers once told me, fall in love with finding your blockages. And that for me was key in the way that I was working with myself and going in my body and feeling, where are those blockages? What's, you know, like, what's there, what's being held, and how can I go and slightly relax, as if, you know, like, as if I'm massaging it from within, all of those blockages. It's like allowing. And as well, you know, like, one of the other things that I work a lot with, it's with our ancestors, like doing family or systemic constellations. Their trauma gets passed down to us. We get all of their trauma as well. Whatever they haven't processed, we are getting that. So there's so much that we're getting. And not only that, we're getting all of the collective or cultural or ethnicity, like whatever group we belong to, we get all of that. So, you know, there's so much that it's like, how can we meet each other with compassion? Because we all have all of these super big energies that are holding on to us. And it's like, just let's hold ourselves with compassion, and let's hold each other with compassion. That is the way of being able to move forward in our lives and as a society, you know, like, to be able to be with each other. So, like, how can I hold the other one with the compassion? Because I have no idea what's going on in their lives. There's, you know, when I was younger, like when I started driving 16, 17, 18, I used to get road rage every time that someone cut me off, you know, like, and stuff like that. And one day, as I started to relax that through all of the practices that I was doing, one day as well, one of my teachers told me, what if, you know, in your head at least, anytime that someone cuts you off, instead of going to, oh, that's an asshole, you go, that person, you know, like, has an emergency, they are going to the hospital. So, you know, like, making way for them. Why, like, without knowing the reason why they cut me off, that they are going faster, I defaulted to the, like, you know, like, they're just an asshole, instead of, like, they are going to the hospital, they are in an emergency. That shift makes my days so much easier.
Because you're not holding on to it. Either.
And I don't know either way. So if I'm not going to know either way, then like, that's just relaxing. Then again, I'm not attached to it, because they are going to the hospital. That's it.
I've done that before, and then my logical brain told me the likelihood of them not going to the hospital was higher, so I decided they just have to poop really bad.
Whatever works for each of us, right?
That might be more likely. We've all been there in the car. So and I say that out loud when my son's in the car. I'm like, must have to poop really bad, and he loves potty humor. So yeah, absolutely. I think, for, like you said, highlighting first and foremost that self-compassion, and it's almost like I channeled this conversation. I did a quick phone interview beforehand, and it asked, have you worked, the typical question, when was the time you worked with a difficult person and how did you handle it? And I said, I remember that I'm only seeing an aspect of who they are at work. And then once I give myself that space, then I'm able to connect with them and the problem resolves itself. So it's yes. Very much the same.
Yeah. You know, like as you're pointing out, we have no idea people's life experiences. Even the people that we think that we know, we don't know that. We don't know all of those traumas that they had, all of those blockages. So like if we can allow ourselves to know that all of the time, you know, it's one of the things that when I'm working with my clients, I see them whole. I see them already as their potential. Like that's the space that I hold when I'm with them. That enables them to then have that for themselves as well. So even in a conversation, you know, it's like anytime that a judgment might come through, it's like, who says that? You know, like I don't know, but that's been one of the main practices that I've had for many years. Anytime that a judgment comes up because of something that I see or someone that I see, it's like, who says that? You know, where is that coming from? Yeah. And not going to that and just being able to soften that. And yes, with the years that went from like that took time to now it's almost immediate. It's like there's even not even nanoseconds, it's even faster. It's like I just catch myself and it's like, no judgment. I have no idea what that person is going through. I have no idea what their life has been. All that I'm seeing is what I'm seeing. Correct. And that's not all of them.
Absolutely. And I that brings the conversation totally full circle too, is that art of just being able to question yourself, right? And the science behind that. I had a client who I love dearly, and she did so well within our time together. And I remember our last session, she just kept taking notes. And I'm like, I'm thinking, wasn't judging her, but I'm thinking, oh, she knows everything already. She doesn't need to take notes. And she goes, okay, last question. What words of advice do you have for me? Because I don't know what I'm going to do without you. And I'm like, oh God, you don't need me, right? Same conversation. It's been you all along. I said, and the thing that just popped in my head was, you need to keep asking yourself questions. You keep asking yourself questions and you won't need anybody. Just be reflective. That's all.
Yeah. And you know, with that, it's like a lot of times I understood many years ago that there's all of these different aspects of myself. And if I'm not allowing all of them, if I am not paying attention, if I'm neglecting any part, then I'm not whole. So, you know, as I was growing up and I was just living in my head, I needed to reconnect with my body. I needed to reconnect with the feelings in my body and to understand that, to understand the energy side, the feeling side, the emotional side of myself, as well as, you know, like the head and the thoughts. There's no separation. Like it was just focusing. Where am I placing my focus? Because I have been neglecting anything from the neck down. So it's like, okay, I need to give it space for my body now. And that doesn't mean I'm not, you know, like there's nothing in my head going on. No, that's still there. The more that I am able to include all of my aspects and to integrate them, then that gives me to that place of wholeness, because now I'm like, okay, that's all of my experience. I mean, that's not all of me. I'm much more than just this. Yet this is part of it. It's just like, you know, like every drop of water in the ocean is the ocean. Like there's no such a difference.
Right.
We have this tendency to think like, oh, there's a difference between my head and my body or my heart, you know, like on some other part. Or this is all, you know, like it's a part of, and it is that as well.
Right.
And to be able to hold this, I think that open perspective of things can be more than one thing at the same time. You know, like I'm talking to you here now. So there's this sense that we are separate. We're one. There's like on one perspective, we're one. There's no separation. Yet on another perspective, I am here sitting in New Zealand, and like, and I have my computer, and there you are in the US, like, and there's this separation. So how can I hold both things to be true at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
And that starts to lessen the hold that I have on things. That starts to relax my perspectives, and that starts to allow me to live, the much enjoyable and conscious life that is actually, like, bloody beautiful to live.
Yeah.
Because it's like there's so much that I'm not noticing because I am just stuck in those perspectives. So if I can relax that, and then it's like I can open myself up to, as we've been talking at the beginning, to that flow of the universe, to surrender and to be like, like, oh, do I need to go there or do I need to go there? Can I just trust, like, and can I not get attached to things? Like, I had many times situations in my life that I was thinking, oh, I'm going to live here and I'm going to do this, and suddenly from one day to the next, it's like your visa, like, renewal was denied, so you need to leave, and it's like, okay, like, that wasn't my plan,
Yeah.
but what am I going to do? Am I going to, like, like, try to, like, stay mad or whatever, or I'm just going to be like, oh well, that's what the universe wanted me, and I'm in, like, in this co-creation with the universe, so I'm just going to surrender that, there's something else coming, and I'm just going to go with that flow, and to stay open to that, to stay okay with that. That is the biggest thing, is, like, to be able to experience life and to be able to stay open and curious and playful with what's happening is, at the end of the day, whether it is with a big thing or with a small thing, it's like, which way of experiencing my life now would I choose? Like a really narrow perspective, being mad, being, like, stuck, or one that is open, playful, like, that is beautiful and it's like enjoyable. Which one would I prefer? It's like this one for sure. Like, I don't want to feel negative or stuck or whatever if I can choose. So, like, that's up to me if I can catch myself.
Yeah. I love it. And I'd like to share with listeners, it's the first step into the unknown is scary, but after that it's like, oh, what was I scared of this whole time? Actually, this feels better. It's less draining to just surrender. I'm thinking of a recent experience where I brought my car into the shop and I knew it needed some serious work. I clearly knew the brakes were gone. I knew I waited on the tires for a year, right? I procrastinated. And so I was expecting a hefty bill. And the lady on the phone was like, okay, do you need a pen and paper? I'm like, yeah, okay. And I'm writing things down. And she's like, okay, what do you want to do? I'm like, just do it all. And she's like, what? And I said, yeah. And when I picked up the car, she goes, Angelica, you were the most pleasant person I worked with today, and you had the biggest bill. I said, this is the most money I've ever had to put in it. And it doesn't happen all the time. And it's just money. Right. Whereas Angelica 6 years ago, oh, I would still not be sleeping because of it. But it's just money. And it felt so, I was reflecting on that the other day. It's just, it was so much easier to let it go than to hold on to it for what?
And it's also, this is one of the things that I work a lot with my clients. It's not about letting go. It's about the understanding of that's the investment. That's why I have the money. I have the money. I'm working to understand this flow of giving and receiving. And there's, like, if I'm consciously choosing what I'm spending my money, I'm not wasting my money. Yes. I am actually allowing that flow to continue. I'm allowing myself to, because, like, what's the alternative? Not to fix the car entirely and then it breaking down again and actually then being worse. So when we are in a position that we can do certain things, it's like, let's do it. Again, like, not everyone is in that position. I understand my privilege. I understand that I can do certain things that not everybody can do. But if I can do that, it's like, why not? Why wouldn't I choose to pay, like, for all of that to be done? than to like to go with my car and be like, oh, again, it's breaking down, and I need to spend extra money, because at the end of the day, those things end up being more expensive.
Correct.
So if we have the possibilities, like, yes, here, I invest in this. So like a lot of times with people, it's like, you know, they come to see me and it's like, you just made an investment on yourself. You know, it's not about me. Yes, that money is coming to me at that moment, but it's not about me. You made an investment on yourself. You didn't spend money. Like, and that sometimes that wording is part of it. It's not either wasting or even spending money, it's investing money, or it's circulating that money. And the more that we allow ourselves to be in that flow, then money comes, because you know, like, whether we are seeing this from a spiritual energetic abundance perspective or from like literally numbers, how much money is there in the world?
Right.
Like every single day, you know, like we can watch the stock market and there's billions that went up or down. It's like, where did that money come from? Well, money is just, you know, like there's almost unlimited. It's just like we're running out of money, the bank just prints out more, so there is money. so it's that, you know, like it's just a matter of distribution and how we are using it. It's not about a lack of it. We're experiencing that lack because we're experiencing lack of worthiness on ourselves, or of different blockages that we have based on our understandings on money and self-worth and self-love. It's not about money. Like, money is there, you know, like if I have the money in the bank, why wouldn't I use it if I need to spend that money on something? I'm investing that, I'm allowing that to circulate. So, you know, a lot of times it's just changing our perspective, changing our language, and changing that narrative that we have on our heads to be able to be like, yep. And then, as you say, like, you know, the experience of this other woman, how beautiful that is, that like she was able to even to recognize, like, oh, you are the, you know, like the most pleasant person to deal with. And it's like, it might not just been about the money, it's about your approach.
Correct.
So, you know, like, how can we allow more of that into our lives?
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, I love it. And as you're speaking, I'm getting excited about a practice that's coming into my head that I've never done before. And I don't think anybody's ever showed me this before, but I just saw a new way of seeing money. And you touched upon this, is just seeing it flow. So when I buy that cup of coffee at Starbucks and I'm starting to feel guilty that I spent $6 on a grande peppermint mocha, half calf, right? Then I can think to myself, okay, well, some of that is going into the baristas who may be in college or who may be supporting their children. Some of it may be going into the hiring somebody new. Some of it could be going to, or probably going to, the coffee growers. It's going into paying for the air flight of that coffee coming, right? And just seeing where it's going and feeling so much better about that. And I'm excited to start that practice. And it doesn't have to be something, I mean, I'm announcing it now, but it doesn't have to be something that I have to voice out loud. It's totally an internal dialogue.
And you know, one of the things that I usually share in a lot of the events and the work that I do with conscious action is voting with your dollar. You know, like it's not about not getting that coffee if that's what you know you want to get. It's about potentially understanding, do I want to support this company, these people?
Yes.
Or do I want to support that other one that is working with, you know, like small family owners, or they're working with organic growers that they're being paid a fair wage? You know, like, we need to educate ourselves on certain things to be able to understand. And then it's like, who am I choosing to support? Just like when we're voting, if we vote on elections, like the same every single time. I am voting with my dollar. Every single time that I'm purchasing something, I am voting with my dollar to the world that I want to see.
Yes. Yep.
And for the ones that we can make those choices, again, that's so important, because money in this world at this moment, money talks, volume.
Mm-hmm.
So if I am going to support a certain company, I am saying to the world, we need more of that.
Right.
And not everything is easy. We still need to, like, it's not black and white.
Correct.
Yet, whenever it is that I have a choice, it's like, I'm going to choose that. I'm going to choose the farmer's market instead of the big chain,
right,
if I'm able to do that.
Correct.
And also, like, a lot of times that's cheaper. I know the person, I know a lot of the things, but not everyone has a farmer's market locally. So
Right.
therefore, perhaps that doesn't work for them. We just need to understand our own circumstances and how we're showing up, and how do we choose to show up, and what do we choose to support, and what are the lenses that we're going to see this world through. And that is what enables us to live in this world that we're co-creating together.
That's beautiful. And it's a beautiful summary of everything that we've talked about so far. Brian, it's been such an amazing conversation. I'm remembering who I am again. So thank you for that. Thank you for being you. Where can people find you if they want to be more in your energy? What kind of offers do you have for them if they want to tap into you more and your gifts?
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm a little bit online, like it's not where I spend most of my time. Either my websites, either the Conscious Action website or brianberneman.com, or on social media, Brian Berneman or Conscious Action NZ as New Zealand. Those are the easiest places to find me. And for anybody that resonates with what I do, with my energy, I work, whether that is in person, most of the year here in New Zealand. When I'm traveling to the US or to Europe, I'm there in person as well. But a lot of times as well, I work remotely, whether that is one-on-one guidance, mentoring, coaching, or holistic therapies, where that is energy healing, family constellations, or I work with businesses, running well-being programs for them, changing the relationship with work. You know, there's so many different things, teaching meditation, so many different things that most of them, I don't have everything online, but most of them I do have them online. So if someone just resonates with my energy and what I do, just go in there and send me a message if you'd like to know more. For me, you know, the way that I work is through resonance. If someone resonates with me, they will come to me. Right. I don't push sales. I don't try to get clients. If someone is the right person for me and I am the right person for them, then that's going to happen.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. Thank you so much for today, Brian, for being you. I'm so excited to hear how the rest of your Monday is, so then I can look forward to it as well. And thank you for just being here. I'm so excited, and I hope that we get to connect next time you're in the US. That'd be so great.
Beautiful. Yeah, so thank you for creating the space and for the wonderful questions and your presence as well. And for everybody that is listening, thank you as well for taking the time to listen or to watch us. So yeah, thank you.